Hello, and welcome to another episode of the M42 Adventures Podcast. I am your host, Rick Trimmer, and I'm excited about this episode I've got going today. This is a gentleman by the name of Dan Peterson, and I met him through a mutual friend, Seth Studley, and Dan is a therapist, I guess you would say. He specializes in relationships, family, and kids specifically. And he's been doing this for 30 years. So this isn't somebody new to the game. He's, been on podcasts. I think he said he was on 20 podcasts last year, does lots of speaking engagements and things like that. So he is the real deal. And he actually just signed up with us to become the newest mentor in our online community, the Genesis. And so this is a place where you can come in and get these people's attention, knowledge, interaction for free. And so we are excited to have Dan as part of our mentorship here inside the Genesis. So get in. If you're not in already, I highly encourage you. These people are, very expensive, very, worth every penny. And they have decided to come into the Genesis and donate their time and knowledge trying to help people out. So we're going to jump into this conversation. Again, Dan Peterson, and let's jump into this conversation. So what's up, man? How do you survive the holidays, huh?
Yeah. My kids are a little bit older, so it's funny. I got 5 younger brothers, and they all have kids like that are 6 and under. So all the holidays, they're just running around, making sure the kids don't fall downstairs. And I got 3 teenagers, so I'm just relaxed, enjoying hanging out with everybody. So it's not too stressful for me these days.
Yeah, that's awesome. I had do you know Greg Godfrey? Have you heard of Nitro Circus?
Yeah. Oh, through you.
Okay, yeah. So he rented my cabin for Thanksgiving, and he came out, and they had I want to say 7 or 9 kids under 4. And it was with all, he was there with his sons and daughters, and he had all these grandkids there, and it was just wow. Whoa, this is crazy, man. It's a lot of little ones running around.
Yeah, that sounds pretty similar to our side of the family.
Yeah. So new year, new resolutions, right?
Yeah, or just sticking with continuing to grow all year round.
I know. It's so funny how such of a cliche it is. I've been going to the gym the last year, and I wasn't a gym person, but I have been going the last year really well. And man, it's just packed now, just packed. And they can't find a parking spot, can't get on a machine. And, everybody says, what 21 days, I think it is the average, 21 days. So they're like, just hang out till, give it a few weeks and you'll start finding a place to park again. And I'm like, dang it. I hate that. I hate that.
Yeah. No, especially when you're in a routine and you got your systems down, and then you go and it's too crowded and you can't get the same work done in the same amount of time.
Exactly. So for people who are tuning in, we got Dan Peterson here, right? I met you through Seth Studley.
Right.
So you guys are in mirroring fields, right? I mean, how did you guys meet? How did you and Seth meet?
They had me on their podcast a couple times, and I got introduced to them through Larry Hagner through the Data Edge.
Okay.
And I was in a couple masterminds with Larry for a couple years, and he introduced me to Seth and some other guys.
Okay. I need to get Larry on. What's his name again? Larry what?
Hagner, Hagner.
Okay. I'm sure Ryan, who's a partner in M42, I'm sure he knows Larry.
Is that Ryan Mickler?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they actually are running some events together this upcoming year. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Yeah, they kind of started at the same time and have a very similar business.
Yeah. I'm going to lunch with Ryan tomorrow about M42, the new year, what we're doing, what we're planning on for the new year. And so I'll hit him up on that. But tell people, Dan, what it is you do. What are you about? What
Sure.
What's your story?
Well, professionally, I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor. It's kind of similar to what Seth is. Seth's a licensed marriage family therapist. Basically, we got graduate degrees in how to do therapy for families and couples and individuals. But my niche is working with kids, especially kids that have complicated like behavioral or psychological issues. And say for maybe the first 15 years of my career, that's all I did was individual and group treatment for children. And then maybe 10, 12 years ago, I made a pivot, and instead of working with kids, I'm working with parents. So I'm a parent coach. I do a lot of training, equipping for parents that have kids that might not be responding to typical parenting strategies, or parents don't want to put their kids on meds. Parents don't want to really put their kids in, therapy, and they're just like, how do I connect to my kid? How do I help discipline? How do I get them to, respond well and develop better skills? And, that's kind of my heart and passion now, is to help the parents that have the more challenging kids. And kind of from that, I actually go into schools and do trainings for teachers and do like professional development for educators and other people in the field that just have a heart for kids.
I love that, man. I know we've only talked, I think we talked one time before, just me and you, and then we were on a mentor call together, but just in my, hour talk with you, hour and 15 minutes, where we were talking about bringing you on as a mentor in M42 Adventures in the Genesis. I think that is so needed. It is so important. I'm having a, daughter, she's due here Thursday. It's a scheduled C-section, so she should, unless she comes early, we'll see her on Thursday. It is, I actually talked to a few people, partners on M42 Adventures, about you coming in as a mentor, and they lit up.
Really?
And I think that's what's kind of cool about the Genesis is, if you're not into surfing, you're not into golf, maybe you'll get some value out of the, relationship mentor, or out of the finance, or out of the travel. But it's, family and your children, that's number one for me.
Yeah.
And if you're struggling with that, either in marriage or as a parent, the rest kind of just goes to the wayside for me. I don't care how much money I have or how good my career's going. If my family is falling apart, that's devastating.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because that just reminds me of why I made a pivot. And it was about the same time I became a dad. I would go to work and I'd be sitting across the table from these parents, and they'd be like, well, like, what should we do? How do we help? And, being firm, finding out what motivates your kids, being consistent, being on the same page. That's all like kind of the textbook stuff you say to parents. But when you have a kid that's maybe wired a bit differently, or the tools you have aren't working, like, as a parent, you're miserable. Like, because you're in this position of like authority, and like, I'm responsible for these kids. And if I don't know what to do, and there's all this stress and conflict at home, and I feel responsible for that, like, how do you rest? How do you relax? It's just constantly on your mind. And so I just, I'd go home, I'd enjoy time with my kids, and then I'd go to work and see these parents in agony. And I was just like, okay, I need to shift here. I need to give them the tools. I got to coach them. I got to, provide, help them learn to be the therapist for their kid. And what's awesome about that is the change is much more sustainable. It's much quicker. The family dynamics are much stronger, and then the parents get the credit rather than some professional or some medication.
Yeah, I think like you said there, when you said, you kind of have the boilerplate, what everybody, it's kind of reminds me of fitness. You can go to people and say, everybody knows it's lift things, calories in, calories out. That's known.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get down to what works for you, it's a lot deeper. It's like, how much weight should you lift? How many calories in and out should you have? Are you a man? Are you a woman? Are you older? Are you younger? And I think you hit the nail on the head there, where, it's like, this isn't a one size fits all. I can imagine.
Right.
Every person, every parent, every son, every daughter is different. And I think that's where I think it's cool to hear what you do, where you go in and you say, we need to tweak this, we need to do this. This is where you need to apply attention or whatever it is you do. So
Yeah. Yeah, I like that fitness analogy because there are some pretty basic things that you can do and you'll get a return on your investment for that. Like if you eat healthy and you're moving and you exercise, you are going to see some change. But what happens if you break your leg? Or what happens if you have a heart condition? Or like for me, I just had surgery on my ankle and I got my ankle fused. So I've been in a cast and I can't put any weight on it. Like what do I do? Or what if you kind of get to a point where you plateau? Like, how do you get to the next level? Like you get advice, you get training, you get education, you develop some new tools and new awareness. And it's the same thing with raising kids. Like nobody's the same. No kids are the same. You know, how do you grow? How do you learn? How do you like know what to do, what not to do, what tweaks to make?
Yeah, and I think, for us, and the reason we created M42 Adventures and the genesis is mentors. It's people like you who are, professionals in your field. It's like I could start a community and be like, hey, I'm going to help you with parenting. I read a book, let's go. I'm a professional now, right? I'm going to tell you how to parent. Right. And it's like, man, the in-depth that you could go, I'm excited about. I'm genuinely excited for your first Zoom call, and all the rest, because I have 4 kids now coming, 4 here soon, and it's tricky. We all, like you said, and I really like how you said the parents get the credit. I think that's a big statement. When you have them pop a pill, and I'm not saying that's wrong. Maybe that's what you need. I'm not the professional, but if you can solve it without that, it's going to be better. It's going to be better, I believe.
Sure. Yeah. And it's, and again, I don't want to send the message that there's never a time and place for medication.
Exactly.
I just, part of the reason I kind of moved away from the traditional mental health field is, especially for kids, is that's the front line of treatment oftentimes. And it's coming from a place of, we don't know what to do, so let's see if we can kind of calm you down or get you focused or get you in a better mood through, changing your biochemistry, your physiology. And
yeah, I just watched a special on Netflix. It says it's Don't Die. Have you seen that one?
Mm-mm.
Just came out, and it's about a guy. He's a billionaire or something, multimillionaire, trying to live forever. Have you seen that, Chase? Yeah, it just came out, and I turned it on. I'm like, oh, here we go. This guy's gonna be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But it has a good message. I think people should watch it. But he talks a lot about how the medical field, we're not going to the root of it. Like you're saying, it's like they come in and it's like, oh, you're overweight, we're gonna give you this medication, or you have cancer, we're gonna treat it this way. They don't go back into our medical field makes more money, is what he says.
Sure.
On the procedures and on the prescriptions. And so they don't go back and say, hey, if you don't want cancer, don't eat this. Don't, if you don't want diabetes, don't eat this, And so I think, like you're saying, if you can step back and find the cause of the problem and not just medicate the problem, it's going to be better for everybody.
Right.
The parents are going to feel like, they did something more than just anybody can go pick up a prescription, but to really sit down and try to find the fundamental problem is, that's a whole nother ballgame.
Yeah. And just the lens that I operate from when I'm working with families, or even when I'm just raising my own kids, it's not what's the root of the problem. Like that's a piece of it, because that's usually what drives people to seek help, is when there's a problem, there's something wrong and they want it resolved. But it's not only that, but what is it that you want to create? What type of relationship do you want to have? What kind of experiences do you want to go on or to participate in? And like you need you need motivation that comes from, I want this pain or this problem to be resolved, but that's a temporary motivation, because as soon as things start to improve, people take their foot off the gas and they go back to old habits. But
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. I'm the financial mentor, in our community.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing I tell people, if you go back and watch my first live Zoom, is, okay, why do you want money? And then what do you want money to do for you long term? Because like you're saying, a lot of people, most people who win the lottery are broke within a few years. We all know that, because they don't have a plan. And the other thing too is a lot of people stay broke. I see this a lot with people that I coach is, you'll have the husband wanting to work on the finances and the wife not, or the wife wanting to work on finances and the husband's not, and they're not aligned on their long-term. If the husband wants to retire in 10 years, but the wife's not working and she's not thinking about that, she'll go buy the shoes or buy the shirt.
Yeah.
But if they sit down and say, hey, together we can retire in 10 years and go sit on a beach in Maui and drink a Mai Tai, then now you're united. And so that's an interesting thing that you're saying there where, it's like we're not just medicating the problem, but why? What do we want out of this? Do we want our son to be happier? Do we want to, what is the long-term effect of this, right?
Right. Yeah, I like that analogy again with the finances, because when people decide to become parents, when they're like, okay, I want to be a parent, let's have a kid, they have a picture in their head of what that's going to look like when the kid's newborn, or when they're 5 or 10 or when they're 15, and you have a kid that's maybe wired a bit differently, or the tools you have aren't working, and mental health field says, hey, it's ADHD, or maybe it's oppositional defiant disorder, or some kind of other mental health condition. Like, that dream is immediately gone. And then what do? Give up? Will we just tolerate like stress? Do we continually try to change our kid to get back to like the vision we want? And when that doesn't work, you start to feel hopeless and helpless. That's when parents start checking out. Or I call it fight or flight parenting, when you're just so stressed, you're fighting with your kid, trying to control them, or you're just checking out and allowing them to get away with things. Just you're just trying to have some kind of sense of calm. But when it's okay, here's what we want, here's what it looks like, and then here's the steps that we can start to do, the skills we can start to develop, and then the parents start to see the change starting to happen. Like, it is so rewarding to see.
Yeah, I use the and I'm full of analogies, so
me too.
Bear with me, Dan. But I use an analogy of when you're doing a budget of going on a trip. I always tell people, are you going to Aspen, Colorado, or are you going to Malibu? Because both, you pack different, you drive different vehicles, you take different roads, and so you have to determine where you want to end up. And then you can work backwards and say, okay, we're going to take flip-flops. You show up to, Aspen in flip-flops in a 2-wheel drive vehicle, you're going to have trouble. And so I think that's I think that a lot of people don't I don't know. Maybe you can answer this, but do people, myself included, I don't know that I've ever looked that far ahead in parenting. It's kind of like, I want kids. I think they're going to bring value to my life. They're going to bring joy to my life. And we're going to go with it. And a lot of people don't really sit down and say, I want my relationship to look like this. I want it to be this way. And then work backwards and have, those directions and those ingredients put in place to where you end up with that result.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's hard too, because then, you want to bake it, you want a chocolate cake at the end of it, and your kid's vanilla, and it's like, you got to adapt, and vanilla's still good. You just got to, how do you rewire that? How do you dive into, I guess that's the process, right? Is trying to say, hey, your kid's not going to be a chocolate cake. You got to come to terms with that, You got carrot cake here, buddy.
Yeah. Or you got like no sugar added ice cream or something. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. When you think about planning, like, here's the vision I have for the, what kind of kid I'm going to have and what we're going to be doing together. It's not so much like what we're going to be doing together. It's more of what type of connection I want to have. What type of bond or relationship are we going to have? Are we going to enjoy each other's company? Are they going to feel safe and feel like I'm their confidant, or I'm going to be able to lead and shepherd them? Or, nobody says, I want to have want to become a parent and I want to have kids that never listen to me. We're always bickering and fighting and they hate everything about me. And, I can't stand there. Like nobody thinks that way. But when you start to experience that because the tools you have aren't working, like that is a very, very miserable place to be. And, I just, when I see kids that are struggling or I see parents that are like struggling, it's really easy for me to kind of pick those people out and then really know how to connect with them and advocate for them and then like train and equip them. So
I like that you've been doing this, for decades, right? So, I mean,
yeah,
you're not new to this.
Years.
What's the difference in, you said at first you started with the children.
Yeah.
And now you're with the parents. Is one more, do you get more results with one than the other or is it just completely different or what's the differences there?
Yeah. So this may
are parents the problem or is it the kids? Because I'm pretty sure it's the kids, but
well, it's never my fault when my kids are acting out or
that's
struggling.
Exactly right.
If they would just do what I said.
That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. Yeah. So
it's a big question.
Yeah, and I want to be intentional about this, but I'm really starting to have a hard time with the mental health field, the medical field, and mental health field falls under that because it's so focused on symptoms and pathology and what's not working. And then it inadvertently is communicating, like when you give somebody a diagnosis, that becomes part of their identity. And what I was finding with kids is if kids are struggling, they go to a professional. The professional has the parents fill out these checklists and these symptom inventories and do this testing. And it's actually training the parents to pay attention to more problems. The surveys and the inventories aren't saying, when does your kid thrive? What do you love about your kid? Where are they really good at? What are their skills? It's like, how long can they pay attention? Are they distracted? Are they irritable? Do they sleep? Like it's everything that's broken and wrong. And, then you give a kid a diagnosis, it becomes part of their identity. And then everybody at school knows about it. And then the family knows about it. And then pretty soon the kid adopts it. And then how do you break out of that cycle when you believe you can't focus? You believe you're impulsive. You believe you got anger management issues because all the adults around you are constantly engaging with you around that. I think I stepped away from individual therapy with kids because I found that if parents had a different plan, if they have a different mindset, approach, perspective, they could actually invest in their kid, build them up on the inside, help create a story, a narrative that's going to be one that, is building them up with confidence and value and worth. And then kids start to behave in a way that's congruent with that. You're in the financial, you're not in the financial industry, but like that's one of your skills is there's this term we use in the kind of circles I run with kids is we're after creating inner wealth, which is a belief that I'm valuable, I'm competent, I'm loved, and I have what it takes to overcome whatever challenge comes my way. And when you can download that kind of a belief into a kid, it doesn't matter what kind of challenges they have. They're equipped and they believe they can overcome it.
Well, that's
putting
cool.
all of that into parents' hands, you get results a lot faster. And unless it's like some kind of trauma, where they need to be with a specialist or it's some kind of neurological condition or something that is beyond, what just a novice person can work with and you need medical help or you need mental health help for that. But I would say since I made that switch, the amount of times that I've referred parents to go get individual counseling for their kid after the parents got the coaching for me is like less than 10%.
Wow. So it's the parents' fault.
Shoot.
You just throw it out there like that.
I had a mentor of mine in grad school that she actually wrote a book. She's like, it is your fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like to look at it. It's more your responsibility.
Yeah.
But if you know what to do and you choose not to, then it's your fault. But blame can be really toxic for parents that are trying the best they can. They just don't know what to do.
Well, and like you said, I've got 3 little boys and they're 3 different people. and it's weird because it's like, it's the same batter. It's the same oven, like what the hell,
Same ingredients.
Yeah. Back to the cake. And it's three different very unique people. And it's funny because it's like you said, you think, I remember my first son, his name's Castle, just very easy, sharp, wise beyond his years, all those things that you want to say, but genuinely he was. And I remember going to my dad being like, yeah, we're going to have more kids. This is so easy. This is like, I'm the best dad in the world. Yeah. And then we had my second child, and he is a handful and completely different, pushes you to the boundaries and it's just, and so you don't have a manual, there's no manual. And it sounds like you help people have somewhat of a manual, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Roadmap with a set of tools. It really is the how-to.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, what are you seeing? And this is a good question, I think, that I just thought of, but in 30 years of being in this field, I was actually I just recorded another podcast before this, but I was at the skate park with my son. He just got a scooter for Christmas, and first time he's ever done it. But there was a lady there, and my son was over talking to her, and then he came over and I says, "Who are you talking to over there?" And he says, "Oh, that's the lunch lady at my school." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." And so I'm just sitting in a chair, and she comes in and eventually wanders over to me, and she says, "Is that your son?" And I says, "Yeah." And she says, "He's a really sweet boy. He's very nice at school and respectful." And I says, "Oh, thank you, appreciate that. We try." And she said, I says, "How do you like being at the school?" And she says, "It's getting very difficult. The kids are getting very mean. They're bullying her. She's Filipino." And she says they come in and say, some of the stereotypes of, things like that. Questioning the meat.
These are younger kids too, right? Like elementary age?
Yep. The highest, it's a private school, and it goes to 7th grade, so 13 and under. And and she just says, "I don't know if I can work there anymore." She says, "I've been doing it a long time and it's changed." And I thought, my mom worked at a junior high here in town, and she quit because she says it's getting very difficult. What are you seeing out there as far as how the world's changing and the way parenting, and you have so much parenting happening, I think, from tablets and screens and social media. I had a nephew who took his own life 4 or 5 years ago in Cedar City, a small town here, because he was getting bullied on social media. Didn't even know the people.
Yeah.
And so what are you seeing? I'm sure you're just seeing this. It's got to that's what's cool about you doing this for 30 years. It has to be different 30 years ago, talking to a parent 30 years ago, or talking to a child 30 years ago to today. Has to be different, right? I mean, the fundamentals are still going to be there, but
yeah, I think,
or is it the same?
It's different. Yeah. So let me answer this 2 ways. So
okay.
I went to a private Catholic school where we had like nuns and priests and, just regular teachers as well. But you would think at a private Catholic school that the kids, for the most part, would be well behaved.
For sure.
But I was in 5th grade, and our teacher left in the middle of the year because she moved, and we had a substitute teacher. And there would be fights that would break out in the middle of class. We had kids throwing like spitballs at the board while the teacher was writing. We had a kid jump out of the window and just leave and go home one day. I remember I was talking to my mom about this. This was a couple of years ago. She's like, "Yeah, you used to come home with a migraine almost every single day because it was so stressful." And I was just like, we had a couple kids that got involved in gangs, and then there were like fights on the property after. I was just like, man, that's the stuff you hear that happens at like public school in the inner city.
Yeah, that surprises me.
Yeah. So, kids having problems and, getting into trouble, like, I don't think that's ever going to change. But the fact of how frequent and how common it is in the classroom, in the school, like, 2 things I've noticed is, one is the teachers are not as empowered because they're not supported by the parents at home.
For sure.
And how much time kids are on technology. They're not having the face-to-face, like real-time feedback of when they say something that's hurtful. And so, like, I got teenagers, but my 13-year-old, when he's playing, VR, or he's playing some kind of online game, they're all just yelling and screaming at each other. And I'm like, who are you talking to? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, would you say that to a kid in person?
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't talk like that to it. Like, so there's this kind of like, I don't know, this culture of you just say whatever's on your mind and you really have no idea on what impact it has on someone else because you don't get to see it.
Absolutely.
And I was at a parent teacher conference last year for my son, and I was just saying, hey, is there anything that, I need to talk to my kid about, any problems he's having in the classroom or anything I can do? And she's just like, well, after recess, he always asks to go to the bathroom, but then he's gone for like 15 minutes. And then, it's like 5 other kids are out in the hallway and they're just screwing around. I'm like, well, why are you letting him go to the bathroom? Like, if that happens one more time, never let him go to the bathroom again. He can hold it. Trust me. And she's like, are you serious? Like, you would let me do that? She was like shocked that she had support. And she's like, if I did that, 9 times out of 10, I would get a call, or I'd get a long email, or I'd have to go have a special meeting with the principal and this parent because I'm, being.
All right, guys, let's step away from this conversation real quick and talk about a few things we have going on with M42 Adventures. First off, it's the new year. Everybody's got big goals, big plans. And one way that I think helps people to achieve those goals is through mentors and accountability. So we have our online community called The Genesis, and we just announced a few weeks ago that it is going to be free for at least the first 6 months of 2025. So if you're interested in coming in, joining these like-minded people, we have just under 100 people in there now. We have 7 mentors teaching everything from finance, self-help, spirituality, self-defense. There's just so many in there. Firearms, all these
relationships.
Relationships. Yep, all these different things. So if you're interested in that, go to m42adventures.com and sign up. Again, it is free. You don't have to enter your credit card. There's no strings attached. Check it out. Second, we have a big giveaway that we're going to be launching here in the next week or two. You do have to be a member of the Genesis to win that. Again, no purchase necessary, but that's going to be amazing. We're going to get that up pretty quick here. So keep following us. Continue to pay attention to that. And then we also have our expenses for this year. We have sold out most of them. We have Africa, some spots left for South Africa still, and we have some spots left for Hawaii. So if you're interested in either one of those, again, get inside the Genesis. That's where all things are happening. I can't tell you enough about it. Get in there, sign up, and then we can talk personally. So that's it. Let's get back to this conversation.
Being too harsh on their child. Like, I don't remember any of that happening even 15 years ago. It's like the parents or the teachers were empowered to discipline the kids, and they had the support of the parents, and there wasn't really any questions asked. So
yeah, that's a good point. I can, that's what this lady said. She says, I'll tell the kids, hey, that's not nice. And then the kids will go tell their parents. And then she says, they haven't done this to me yet, but they brought one of my coworkers in, and she had to sit with the parents and the principal.
Yeah.
And she's like, we're lunch ladies. Like, we're not teachers. We're not, we get a scoop of, beans, and we put the beans on their plate, and we talk to them for a few seconds. And she says,
right.
That lady ended up quitting because of that experience. She says it was traumatizing. She says, I'm in there getting yelled at by the parent. And she's like, whatever the issue was, but I completely agree with that, where their hands are tied.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, what's the solution there? I mean, just basically as a parent, as far as how do you just pay attention to your kids and one at a time, and just try to change the world one parent at a time? Is that kind of your mission then?
Yeah, my mission is to train and equip parents to with the right set of tools so that they can restore peace, love, and joy in the home. So my focus is really on the parent-child relationship and the family dynamic. if you get that right, other things just take care of itself.
I love that, man. I am, like I said, yours is probably one of the top. I mean, you know, out of the 10 or 12 channels we have mentored right now, I'm excited about this one. I think it's going to be very beneficial, and not even just to parents. I think just people in general. I'm sure it rolls over into relationships and how to treat everybody, right? I mean, that's the, you know, if you can kind of win that, you know, get that equation down, I'm sure it benefits everything. Your husband-wife dynamic.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a kind of a good segue for a point I want to make is the approach I use was initially designed for kids with like ADHD or behavioral problems. And when they started kind of integrating this approach in the context of like family therapy, these kids started getting better really, really quickly. And then the schools were like, well, they're getting better at home, but they're still terrorizing the school. So they went in and trained the teachers on how to integrate this into the classroom. And while they were doing that, the light bulb kind of went off and said, well, this is actually the way we should be treating all kids. And I can get into the specifics of the model I use. I think that might be helpful for your audience.
For sure.
But kind of a long story short is the other trainers that are licensed or certified in the approach I use, there's people that go into corporate America and do executive coaching. There's people that do marriage retreats, people that work in the judicial system or in, you know, like juvenile detention centers. It's a human relationship model. So if you have a kid that's, you know, struggling or they're wired differently, or maybe they do have ADHD, it's not something you would just use for them. It's an approach that we integrate in the home, and it becomes part of the way that we just interact with everyone.
Well, and I'm even thinking with, you know, like you said, my employees.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
My construction companies here have 60, 70 employees, and they all deal with these, you know, these kids, they grow up, you know, we all grow up and we still have a lot of these scars or problems. Yeah. And I think that would be very valuable for these people to apply, you know, my managers and my CEOs to apply as well.
Yeah. So I have a 90-day coaching program that I kind of lead parents through. And it happens every single time without exception. At some point, one of the parents says, you know what, I need to treat my employees through this model.
Yeah.
And what they do is they start to notice that their employees start to perform harder or perform better, and there's less problems, and people are more like self-guided or taking ownership, because the way that we're designed as humans is to build each other up, to encourage each other, to have each other's back. When problems happen, we're meant to have patience and extend forgiveness and grace, and we're also meant to have really good boundaries and be really clear with what's okay and what's not. And the model that I use, it's like a tripod. You have to have all three of these legs or stands in place to get true transformation on the inside that leads to a change in character and a change in behavior. And, you know, like just looks at the relationship, like what do we give our energy to? What do we give our time to? When you think about your kids, how old are your kids again?
13, 10, and 4.
Okay. So that, can I use you as a guinea pig here to prove a point?
100%.
Okay. So what prompts you to have a conversation with your boys about respect?
What
do you say?
Disrespect.
Yeah. 100%. That's what most people say.
Yeah.
And again, if you're a dad or a father or a mother, a parent, even a teacher, if your values are like, we're respectful people, we're kind, we're loving, we're generous, like whatever your core values are, if respect's one of them and your kid is disrespectful or does something that's disrespectful, you're going to have an alarm system that goes off and says, I need to address this, because you love and care for them. But what happens is you inadvertently give the message that you're a disrespectful person because you just got connection, energy, passion, love for me. And what happens is, for that, if that happens consistently over time, that's the download that a kid receives, is when I'm disrespectful, I get dad's love. And we want to be really careful not to be doing that. So when you look at your connection, your relationship with your kid, the time to talk about respect is when you observe them being respectful and you confront them with like, listen, man, I saw that you were frustrated, but you didn't lose your patience. You didn't yell. You didn't swear. You just talked about what you needed. That was really respectful. Like, that's the type of person you are. And what happens is the kid gets the same amount of energy and connection from their parent, but they're also getting the message of, you're a respectful person, here's the proof. And then that starts to become the narrative in the story is, I'm respectful, here's exhibit A through Z. And when you get really good at training yourself to see what's going well and you have the right tools and language to capture that and provide that proof and evidence to your kids, that's the first stand of this approach. The second stand is when they are disrespectful or they are doing things wrong, how do you give it the bare minimum amount of energy so that you don't inadvertently connect to problems?
They don't imprint on that.
Yeah. It's like, I made a mistake. How do I get back on track versus, all right, dad's frustrated or mom's frustrated or here we go again. Like, I don't know about you, but I've never had one of my kids look at me and like, you know what, Dad, that's a good point. I didn't know that was disrespectful. You know, like, thanks for the wisdom you just gave me. It's usually in one ear out the other, or like my kids at this age, it's like, well, it was his fault or he started it or, you know, it's just normal psychological defensiveness goes up because you don't want to be perceived and you don't want to feel bad. So that's not the optimal time to teach character. The optimal time to teach character is when you see it happening because kids are open to receive it and believe what you're saying is true. So those are the first two stands. And then the third one is you have to be super clear with where the boundaries are and what the limits and expectations are. And if you break a rule, it's not a big deal because I'm not frustrated, but it is your responsibility to correct it and learn from it and move forward. So all the energy and all the focus is on like recovering, accountability, responsibility, as opposed to why did you do this? What can you do differently next time? I can't believe you did this.
Shame.
Yeah. And it's similar to how a referee would officiate, say a basketball game. If a player's dribbling the ball down the court and steps out of bounds, the ref just blows a whistle, says turnover. If they argue and they fight and they complain, then they get a technical foul. But the ref doesn't lose their mind.
Yeah.
The ref isn't chasing the player down the court saying, hey, listen, that was your first warning. If you do it again, or please stop. Otherwise, I'm going to have to sit you down, Johnny.
Right.
But that's how we parent sometimes.
We
give all these warnings and we spend all this time trying to get them to stop versus letting them choose right and wrong and then just letting them know what happens when they do it so that they're educated and they can learn.
I like that. That really, applies to me. That's something that, I'm very like analytical, I like, and I haven't treated my kids that way, I haven't, but I like that puts it in a clear perspective for me where it's like, let's I could set that up fairly easy.
Yeah.
And, I always think about, we go to SeaWorld a lot down in San Diego. And you always see how they train these whales and these dolphins and stuff, and it's like, they're not out there beating them. They're not out there, like you said, they're just rewarding. They're building they're making them imprint on positive.
Yeah.
And then they pretty soon, they have them doing what they want, these 1,000-pound animals, and I'm always like, that there's something there, there's obviously something there. Why am I not doing that with my kids,
Do you know how they train those killer whales to be able to jump over that 20-foot rope on command?
I don't.
They start
Give
by
a fish.
Yeah, well,
but I don't know how they get there.
That's not how they start. What they start is they line the bottom of the tank with ropes.
No way.
They create an environment where success is inevitable, where failure is impossible.
I like that even more.
The fish moves, it gets a fish. And then they take a couple of the ropes.
Mammal, Dan.
Yeah, mammal. There you go. But every
That's
time,
crazy.
and then they slowly take the ropes away until there's only one, and then they start to raise it and raise it and raise it until it's 20 feet out of the water.
Wow. I did not know that.
What would that look like if we created a home environment where success was inevitable?
I like that.
Right? It's just, it's such a different mindset and a different way of raising kids or actually treating kids that have challenges because kids that are born with challenges, they didn't ask for that. It's our responsibility as the adults to know what to do, like to lead and guide them to success, not, oh crap, you got a diagnosis, you have to, take medicine, or you have to have these special behavior programs. To me, it's just, it's such a powerful message behind that that's so negative that we're not even aware of, because we're coming from a place of caring and love. It's just the training and the systems we have in place.
Yeah, we don't know better. We don't know what we don't know, and so that's what I think that's what I like about this. And that's there's a lot to this. I'm going to have to listen to this one again, cause my head's spinning from a lot of this stuff, but that's a good one, man. I like that, as far as, cause I'm just thinking with my own kids, when I think a big problem parents make, that I make, I won't say the others, but that I make is, it's like, hey, there's a 10-foot rope, jump it. Why can't you do it? Just jump it. Instead of saying, hey, here's a 6-inch rope, jump it. Good job.
Yeah.
Here's a 12-inch rope. Hey, awesome. Why do we as parents put these, I know me and my wife do this a lot, where, and I think might be hard for others, where it's like, you're an adult, you're 40 years old. What you can do and the way you process stuff is way different than the way a 5-year-old does.
Sure.
And so when you get mad at them for spilling the milk, or drawing on the wall, they don't know yet that that's not allowed. It's like, hey, I have a pretty colored thing here, and that wall would look a lot better with some red on it. I'm going to put it on there, and then it's like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? And it's like, oh, well, that was wrong. That was the wrong way to do that. So I think, like you said, it's the reason, like the fitness one, the financial one, those ones are easier for me, because it's me. It's my journey. It's like, I've got to go to the gym. I have to lift the weights. I have to not eat the double cheeseburger. It's still hard, but it's me. But with your kids, or even your spouse or your employees, to be able to, and I don't want to say manipulate, because that kind of has a negative connotation, but it really is. You're just trying to guide or influence them into a positive manner.
Yeah. You want to bring out the very best in them.
Yeah.
You want to help them elevate.
And like you said, it's always out of love. That's what's so, not always, but 90% of the time, it's a parent loves their children. They want what's best for them. And it's crazy how far it can go the wrong direction, with the wrong tools.
Yeah, that's so true. And, if you didn't deeply love your kid, you wouldn't be bothered by their behavior. You wouldn't be concerned. You wouldn't be worried. You wouldn't be staying up at night. Or I have a lot of parents that, develop like these anxiety responses every time the phone rings during the school day, because they're so used to getting calls from the school.
Can I ask a question?
I thought your mic was off.
Oh,
shoot.
No, yeah.
Sorry about this, Dave.
I just want to know something when it comes down to, just because I felt like I, was kind of neglected in this area when I was young. But how do you foster like good growth in areas that you can tell your kids are skilled in?
I'm not connecting the first part of your statement where you felt like you said like you were neglected.
Well, no. So like I just felt like when I was a kid that my parents never really tried to drive me in a direction that they could tell that I was deeply either passionate or skilled about.
How do they recognize it?
Yeah, like how do they foster growth in those areas? Like, because
probably conversations. I think that's where and again, I'll let you answer, Dan, but I know with me, most of my problems come through lack of communication. My wife's like, I didn't know you were thinking that. And it's like, well, how would you? I have to open my mouth. I think parents don't do a good job, me included, of just saying, and I've tried to do better, where it's like, what do you want? What do you think? What are your hopes and dreams? What do you enjoy? I think, so Dan, you take it. You take it from there.
I'll piggyback on that. I think that's a great place to start, because you have to be curious about what they're passionate about or where their interests lie. Because if you see a skill in them and you try to force it, you're going to get a ton of resistance and resentment.
Right.
It's a fine balance between like where they're interested and passionate and where their talents line up. And if you got those two lined up, what I'm really big on is if you are in just consistently focus on character and effort and pointing out day in and day out where you see that, and you're very specific about it. That's the key. It's not good job, way to go, I'm really proud of you, that was awesome. All of that is empty praise, and it's really just saying I'm happy with what you did. But if you're like, man, I see you studying right now, you got your math book out, you got your calculator, you're writing down notes, you've been sitting at the table for a half an hour, you're being like really responsible and taking ownership, and that's really mature. Like, those skills or those qualities extend in every area of your life. It's not just tied to academic performance. And when kids value themselves, and it builds their confidence, they're willing to take risks, and more importantly, they're able to tolerate failure. Like, to really excel at something, you have to be able to accept that you suck at certain times. You know, how many times do kids fail or they get beat and then they just want to throw their hands up? Right? That resilience and that perseverance is key. So that's the first part, is you really have to be bringing to their attention the character, their effort, because that can be extended in any area. I think the other part too that has served me well, because my kid was 13, he has a pretty significant anxiety. I would say at different points, he's actually had a full-blown anxiety disorder. He used to struggle with like panic attacks about going to school. I was 100% committed to saying there is nothing that you cannot overcome, and there's nothing you can do to convince me otherwise. I don't care how big the anxiety is. There's no way you're going to convince me that you're not capable and that this anxiety is too much. And when you have a parent that believes that confidently in their kids, sometimes you have to be the confidence while they're in the storm struggling until they get to the other side. Because once you start to doubt and you're not sure about if they can do it, if they're competent or they're equipped, you're going to start inadvertently connecting and feeding all of this doubt in them. And if the biggest, most powerful person on the planet doesn't believe in me, and I'm starting to doubt myself, I must not be capable, I must not be competent. And that's where you get kids to throw in the towel and give up.
That totally
I
makes
have no
sense.
idea if that answered your question, but that's...
No, that was wise. I went through like a whole bunch of pages of my childhood just going through that talk.
Yeah, well, and think about it too.
Yeah.
When you see, like, if you see that your child's talented in something and they have skill, how do you create opportunities for that to be on display, for them to showcase that? Not as a way of like, hey, look how great my son is or my daughter is, but put them in an environment where those tools and skills can flourish. And once they start to see success or they start to become more competent, their confidence starts to skyrocket. You know, if they don't get to experience success and you're saying, hey, you're really good at this, but they're not experiencing it and their confidence isn't going up, then, you know, it's very hard to convince them of that otherwise.
It sounds like you think, and correct me if I'm wrong or elaborate on this, but it seems like a lot comes down to confidence.
Oh,
everything,
yeah,
a lot, all of this. I mean, and is that true? Is that kind of, if you can get a child that is most of the problems you see in children that are not confident? Is that the root? Is that the foundation?
Yeah, I don't want to generalize it to everything, but I would say that's a key ingredient in a lot of cases.
So parents can make their kids feel confident. You're on the way to winning a major battle.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So you're not born with confidence.
Absolutely.
You're not born with like I have what it takes. I know I can do this. I'm going to succeed. You get that by trying something, getting results, and then either course correcting or it worked and now you feel better. So like as you develop more skills, you become more confident or competent, then you become more confident. It comes after the success. And so pointing out to your kids and bringing to their awareness all these micro wins, like, you know, lining the whole bottom of the pool with ropes. You start to bring to their awareness and build their confidence before they're even in that arena where they need it the most.
Yeah, I like that. Well, I that's most of my questions, Dan. Is there anything else you want to talk about that I didn't touch on? Is there anything else that you want to tell people that are listening? I know, and I'll get this Chase had told me that your website's Compass for Life. Is that
The
right?
Compass for Life, yeah.
The Compass for Life. So people that are reaching out, they can come to the Genesis. That's free. They can get a little taste, see what you're about, and then if they want to go further, that's one way, right?
Yeah, just you can go to my website. I have a couple free resources if you want to give me your email. Also, just if you have a question, you want to talk to me directly, I do free initial consultations. Just you can book that directly on my calendar, and I'll set up a time to give you a call and we can talk a little bit. But I think the main thing that I want to say is I can help like with any kind of relationship connection with kids, but my superpower, my niche, that's kind of where I get really excited and alive, is parents who have kids that are not responding to typical discipline and parenting strategies. I can help you like come up with a roadmap. I have a 90-day plan on how to like change that so that you get the good connection, the tools you have are getting the results you want, and your relationship with your kids starts to thrive. Parents that might think their kid has ADHD or some kind of mental health or behavioral condition, those are the parents that I have like a real heart for. But again, I can coach and work with any type of parent that wants to elevate their game.
Yeah, and I think, as this grows and goes with the Genesis, I'm sure it's going to branch out into, all your live Zooms and stuff. I can only imagine, because like you said, this can go into, parenting, relationships, parents, marriages, employees. It's like, I think that from what I can see, this can translate into all relationships.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Well, and also in self-development, like, asking yourself certain kinds of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, even just friendships. It's like, man, I think this is such a, those are the 4 pillars for a reason. You got your finance, your relationships, your fitness, and your faith and spirituality. And I think those 4 are so important. If you're not, like I said, if you're not fit or you're fighting with your wife, you're not going to want to go on a vacation. You're not going to want to go, do some of these adventures we're doing. So
yeah.
I'm excited that you're here. I appreciate you being a part of it. I'm excited for what you're going to teach me and all the others and things like that. So anything else you want to add?
No, I think
Did we cover it all?
Yeah.
We're good to go?
Well, listen, I could talk for another 6 hours if you have questions and stuff.
I could too.
This kind of stuff gets me pumped, but I think we covered kind of the heart of what I do and why.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. I'm excited. We need to get together. Where are you at? Where are you located? You're like in west of Chicago, right?
Unfortunately, yeah, right outside of Chicago.
It's freezing right now? Are you okay?
It's like 10 degrees today.
Holy cow.
I heard there's a big storm coming. Is it came or is it coming?
It actually was south of us. They got a ton of snow down like in Kansas City, and all the schools are closed. And imagine having 2 weeks of like Christmas vacation and then it's time to go back and now you're locked in your house with your kids for a little longer.
Yeah.
I got a few clients down there and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to rip my hair out.
Yeah. Your phone's ringing.
Yeah.
You're booking client. It's like,
we need assistance.
Good for business.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate you, man. I'm excited. I'm going to have my wife listen to this and then go further with you. So appreciate you being on. Dan Peterson. Again, are you social media? How else do they find you? Anything?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on Facebook. That's my main way of communicating and sending out like parenting tips. If you go to my website, all of my social stuff is directly on there. And it's The Compass. It's the number 4 life.com.
Okay.
And you can connect to me, follow me on socials, and get on my email list. That's probably the best way. Yeah,
man, I'm excited. I want to do, let's do, if you're open to it, I'd like to do some adventures and bring this into it. What do you like outdoor? Is there any, what draws you?
That's my favorite thing.
Oh, there we go. I don't know. Oh yeah, you did tell me that.
Yeah.
You did tell me that.
Look
at mine. Here, look. Have you seen mine? Let's see if I can do this. This is my office. Is that?
Look, a big old elk. There's all kinds of animals hung up all over the walls. Yeah, there you go. There's more. Uh-huh.
Who's that animal in the corner over there? Like,
hi. Yeah.
So that's
nice.
In the corner over there's the axis. You need to come out and do that. But I had to put my elk up into the ceiling because it was too tall to sit on
I was
the
gonna
couch.
say those
Yeah, its
tines look like
horns
they're
are in.
breaking through.
Yeah.
The antlers are going through the ceiling.
But
That's
no,
pretty
man,
cool.
let's, I would love to.
Yeah, this picture behind me is at Glacier National Park a couple of years ago.
Oh,
Did you take
I want to
it?
go there.
Yeah, or I think my wife took it. That's me and
Jeez.
the kids.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I was looking at the clouds in the river.
No, this smaller one right on my
I can't. I
desk.
see a corner of it. I can't see it all.
Oh,
So that's your. I love it. That's cool. That's cool. Well, yeah, man. Let's get you out and.
sorry,
Still
we're
got me?
Yeah. go
Let's
ahead.
get you out then, and let's. I'd like to do some stuff combined.
Yeah, I just I had my ankle fused about a month ago. I get out of this cast soon, and the doctor guaranteed that I'd be able to hike and be in the outdoors again before the year's over. So that was part of my motivation is, man, being able to hike and travel and explore again. It's
Okay,
been a
man.
couple years.
Well, let's talk more off camera and get some stuff put together. I think this would be a good, adventure hunt or hike or whatever /
Yeah.
I would love to be a part of that one for me. So,
Yeah. Cool.
okay, brother.
All right.
Thanks for your time, and we'll see you. I'll see you on the live Zoom here this month.
All right. Take care.
All right, brother. Bye. All right. So there you have it. My conversation with Dan Peterson. Again, awesome information. I'm excited for this one. I'm having a new baby girl, my 4th child, and I'm excited for the kid aspect of this, parenting and kid aspect. Again, as you heard, it's beneficial for relationships in all aspects, husband, wife, kids, parents, even employees. The things that he teaches, they will cross over into so many facets of our lives. So I appreciate Dan coming on. I'm excited to have him in the Genesis. Again, if you want to come listen to Dan, interact with Dan, ask him questions, he is doing a Zoom call every month in the Genesis for free. His first one is going to be January 28th at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, and it's going to be on how to ignite greatness in our kids is the first call that he's going to be doing. So again, invaluable. I'm going to be on the call. I highly recommend that you sign up, tell your friends, tell your family, people that are struggling or having issues in their relationships, parents, kids, employees, all these different things. Dan is the guy that can really help us. Again, you can also go to thecompassforlife.com and you can reach out to Dan through that as well. So hopefully we'll see you guys in the Genesis, and you guys can continue this conversation yourself with Dan. Thanks for listening. This is the M42 Adventures Podcast, signing off. Hopefully you have a great weekend, and we'll see you on the next one.